firings had occurred in 2000, 2005, 2009 and 2012. They are infrequent due to the missile's £17 million cost. 134. By August 2016 there had been 161 successful test firings of the Trident 2D5 missile since 1989, the most recent being from USS Maryland in August 2016. 135. Fewer than 10 test flights have been failures, 136, and the Royal Navy is not known to have had a previous failure. 137. Cost. In the 1990s, the total acquisition cost of the Trident program was £9.8 billion, about 38% of which was incurred in the US. In 2005-06, annual expenditure for the running and capital costs was estimated at between £1.2 billion and £1.7 billion and was estimated to rise to £2 billion to £2.2 billion in 2007-08, including atomic weapons establishment costs. Since Trident became operational in 1994, annual expenditure has ranged between 3 and 4.5% of the annual defense budget, and was projected to increase to 5.5% of the defense budget by 2007-08. 138, 139. An important factor in the cost was the exchange rate between the dollar and the pound, which declined from $2.36 in September 1980 to $1.78 in March 1982. 92. Operation. HMS Vanguard at Fasman patrols. The principle of Trident's operation is known as continuous at-sea deterrence, CAST, which means that at least one submarine is always on patrol. 140. Another submarine is usually undergoing maintenance and the remaining two are in port or on training exercises. During a patrol, the submarine is required to remain silent and is allowed to make contact with the UK only in an emergency. It navigates using mapped contour lines of the ocean floor and patrols a series of planned boxes measuring several thousand square miles. A 1,000 meter long, 3,300 feet, aerial trails on the surface behind the submarine to pick up incoming messages. Most of the 150 crew never know where they are or where they have been. 141. The 350th patrol commenced on the 29th of September 2017. 142, 143. On the 15th of November 2018, our reception was held at Westminster to mark 50 years of CAST. 144. Command and Control. Only the Prime Minister or a designated survivor can authorize the missiles to be fired. 145. These orders would likely be issued from the Pindar Command bunker under Whitehall in central London. From there the order would be relayed to the Commander, Task Force 345, CTF 345, Operations Room at the Northwood Headquarters facility in Hertfordshire, the only facility allowed to communicate with the Vanguard Commander on patrol. 146. Communications are relayed via IP over VLF from a transmitter site 8 Skelton near Penrith. 147. Two personnel are required to authenticate each stage of the process before launching, with the submarine commander only able to activate the firing trigger after 2. Safes have been opened with keys held by the ship's executive and weapon engineer officers. 148. A parliamentary answer states that commanding officers of Royal Navy ballistic submarines receive training in the law of armed conflict. 145. Bases. HMS Vigilant alongside number 10 berth at HM Naval Base, HMNB, Clyde. In October 2007, Trident is based at HMNB Clyde on the west coast of Scotland. The base consists of two facilities: Fasland Naval Base on Gareloch near Helensburgh, and an ordnance depot with 16 concrete bunkers set into a hillside at Caport, 4 kilometers (2.5 mi) to the west. Fasland was constructed and first used as a base during the Second World War. This location was chosen as the base for nuclear-armed submarines at the height of the Cold War because of its position close to the deep and easily navigable Firth of Clyde. It provides for rapid and stealthy access through the North Channel to the patrolling areas in the North Atlantic, and through the Guyot Gap between Iceland and Scotland to the Norwegian Sea. Also base it are Astute-class nuclear-powered fleet submarines, SSNs. 149, 150, and 8 Caport is used to store the nuclear warheads and has docking facilities where they are loaded on tow submarines before going on patrol and unloaded when they return to the base. 151. Repair and refit of the Vanguard-class submarines takes place at HMNB Devonport near Plymouth, Devon. 152. Espionage. According to senior RAF officers, the retirement of the Nimrod maritime patrol aircraft in 2011 gave Russia potential to gain valuable intelligence on the country's nuclear deterrent. As a result, plans to buy Northrop Grumman MQ-4C Triton unmanned aerial vehicles were reportedly considered. 153, 154. The Strategic Defense and Security Review 2015 announced that 9 Boeing P-8 Poseidon maritime patrol aircraft would be purchased for the RAF. 115. They became operational on the 3rd of April 2020. 155. Opposition. Anti-Trident demonstrators in London, February 2016. The Campaign for Nuclear Disarmament, CND, was a national movement founded in the late 1950s, initially in opposition to nuclear testing. It reached its peak around 1960, by which time it had evolved into a broader movement calling for Britain to unilaterally give up nuclear weapons, withdraw from NATO, and end the basing of nuclear-armed aircraft in the UK. The end of atmospheric nuclear testing, internal squabbles, and activists focusing their energies on other causes led to a rapid decline, but it revived in the early 1980s in the wake of the Thatcher government's December 1979 decision to allow the deployment of weapons in the UK under the NATO double-track decision, and the announcement of the decision to purchase Trident in July 1980. Membership leapt from 3,000 in 1980 to 50,000 a year later, and rallies for unilateral nuclear disarmament in London in October 1981 and June 1982 attracted 250,000 marchers, the largest ever mass demonstrations in the UK up to that time. 156. The 1982 Labour Party conference adopted a platform calling for the removal of the GLCMs, the scrapping of Polaris and the cancellation of Trident. This was reaffirmed by the 1986 conference. While the party was given little chance of winning the 1983 election in the aftermath of the Falklands War, polls had shown Labour ahead of the Conservatives in 1986 and 1987. In the wake of Labour's unsuccessful performance in the 1987 election, the Labour Party leader, Neil Kinnock, despite his own unilateralist convictions, moved to drop the party's disarmament policy, which he saw as a contributing factor in its defeat. 157, 158. The party formally voted to do so in October 1989. 159. Pro-independence Scottish political parties: the Scottish National Party, SNP, Scottish Green Party, Scottish Socialist Party, SSP, and Solidarity are opposed to the basing of the Trident system close to Glasgow, Scotland's largest city. 160. Some members and ex-members of those parties, such as Thomas Sheridan and Lloyd Quinnan, have taken part in blockades of the base. 161. For a major House of Commons vote in 2007, the majority of Scottish members of Parliament, MPs, voted against upgrading the system, while a substantial majority of English and Welsh MPs voted in favour. The House backed plans to renew the programme by 409 votes to 161. 162. Faznan Peace Camp is permanently sited near Faznan Naval Base. It has been occupied continuously, albeit in different locations, since the 12th of June 1982. 163. In 2006, a year-long protest at Trident's base at Faslaniam to blockade the base every day for a year. More than 1,100 people were arrested. 164. During the 2020 coronavirus pandemic, a letter was circulated to MPs by the Bertrand Russell Peace Foundation which stated, "It is completely unacceptable that the UK continues to spend billions of pounds on deploying and modernising the Trident nuclear weapons system when faced with the threats to health, climate change and world economies that coronavirus poses." Signatories included Commander Robert Forsyth RN, Ret.D., a former nuclear submariner; Commander Robert Green RN, Ret.D., a former nuclear-armed aircraft bombardier navigator and staff officer, intelligence, to Fleet in the Falklands War; and Commander Colin Tibet RN, Ret.D., a former senior engineer officer on a Polaris submarine. 165. Following this, the MOD updated its online instruction notice to staff on public communications to say, "All contact with the media or communication in public by members of the armed forces and MOD civilians where this relates to defense or government business must be authorized in advance." 166. Reviews. Officer of the Watch Aboard HMS Vanguard, Royal United Services Institute. The Royal United Services Institute, RUSI, a British defence and security think tank, released a paper in July 2010 assessing 4 possible options for maintaining both an effective nuclear deterrent and also reducing costs in light of anticipated budget restrictions. 167. These proposals were motivated by the fact that funding for the Trident renewal program now had to come from the core Ministry of Defence budget. 168. 4 alternatives were considered. Trident submarines on continuous patrol. Trident submarines not on patrol continuously, attack submarines armed with nuclear cruise missiles, and land-based nuclear weapons. 167. The paper concluded that given the opportunity costs for conventional capabilities that current plans for Trident renewal are due to incur over the next decade, there is now a growing case for a re-examination of whether there are less expensive means of pursuing this objective. A key element of such a review is likely to be a reconsideration of the need to maintain a commitment to cast in strategic circumstances that are now very different from those in which it was first introduced. 169. Trident Alternatives Review. The 2013 Trident Alternatives Review was an 18-month study led by the Cabinet Office that was aimed at establishing whether or not there were credible alternatives to the UK's submarine-based CAS. Accordingly, the review analysed a range of delivery systems and warhead designs with respect to their affordability and effectiveness against potential targets. 170. Ultimately, the Trident Alternatives Review came to the conclusion that there were alternatives to Trident that would enable the UK to be capable of inflicting significant damage such that most potential adversaries around the world would be deterred, but none would offer the same degree of resilience as the current posture. The review asserted that whether or not cruise missile-based systems offer a credible alternative was contingent upon a political judgment on whether the UK could accept a significant increase in vulnerability and a reduction in who it could at a 170. The publication of the report was met with a mixed reception from different political parties and non-governmental organizations, NGOs, in the field of non-proliferation and disarmament. While it was welcomed by the Prime Minister, David Cameron, as having confirmed the necessity of like-for-like a replacement of Trident, Liberal Democrat Cabinet Minister Danny Alexander deemed it a demonstration of fact there are credible and viable alternatives to the UK's current approach to nuclear deterrence.